Okay, it's Alexander Lawrence, the Portable Infinite, and it's January 2024. This is the first interview of the year, interview number 24. It's like we're getting in the heavy digits, and we're here with our good friend Piper Ferguson, and she has a new book, Indie Scene. Go get it. Go buy a bunch of copies for your family, and this is an important book, and,
Thanks.
and it's like a real LA book. I mean, part of it, one way could be read as like an LA kind of document, and then but there's also like CMJ, South by Southwest, and what's the other one? Coachella. Kind of,
Coachella,
yeah,
a
essentially.
little bit of London in there, a little bit of where else does that book take place? Yeah, New York, CMJ, Winter Music Conference, a little bit of London, San Francisco, lots of Los Angeles. Yeah.
So Piper Ferguson, I mean, you're from Petaluma.
Yeah.
She went to San Francisco State. Did you go to art college too?
No, I didn't. I just went to San Francisco State.
And she went to state like a lot of friends of mine, and I grew up in San Francisco too, and we have a lot of mutual friends. And she's a writer, photographer, and what director and everything. She's working on stuff. We'll be talking about a lot of this stuff. So we're celebrating this book, Indie Scene, if I didn't say it before, Piper Ferguson, forward by Johnny Marr. And so I guess I mean, because we worked with a lot of the same people. I worked with Shirley Halprin in New York, and we I was working at magazines in the '90s, and like I did some stuff for Under the Radar and Interview magazine, and Piper, and like I would be doing stuff, and like Piper's photos would be there too, and I go, who is this person? Because I was in part of it. I think at the beginning I was in New York, and then I came back to LA. And I think the first time I was aware of you was the Rage Against the Machine photos at Coachella. Was there a lot of people shooting back then, or what happened? What was going on there?
Oh God, that's such an interesting thing to bring up. Because is it in the book? Yeah, it is. That was the first photo that I ever had in like a major magazine, was that Rage Against the Machine Coachella photo. And there wasn't a lot of photographers photographing Coachella at that time. I don't know how many there was there, but they had, when that photo was taken, there was a lot of concerns about the safety of the photographers in the pit because the crowd was so excited and rambunctious that they pulled all the photographers out of the pit. And thankfully, I had an all access pass because I knew everyone at Golden Voice. So I was able to get on stage and get that photo, which was such a violent, exciting, dangerous, amazing, energetic show. It was so cool. So yeah, that was 99.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I was kind of like, because I was working in New York publishing in most of the '90s and magazines, but I wasn't really doing music. But I started at '98. I started going to CMJ, and then uh, by '99 or 2000, I started going to music, and so I was kind of became more aware of like photography. I mean, I some of the people you've mentioned, and like Danny Clinch and stuff. I knew them through like because Shirley Halprin was working with them back in the '90s and stuff. So I had met a lot of those guys, and so there was kind of a familiarity with photography. And I worked with my own photographers, but we were shooting like Bret Easton Ellis or somebody, or some writer, or Irving Welsh or somebody like that. So, but yeah, Coachella, like, so there was, yeah, I mean, if you watch some of the Coachella documentaries, it wasn't a sellout. People didn't even know what it was really. It was like nobody
Yeah.
went to the out there before, so you were kind of jump. How many times have you been to Coachella, like photographing?
I've probably photographed maybe 15 Coachellas,
Okay, so there's only been like maybe 25 or so.
20 something. Yeah, I stopped going probably I think I did go as a fan in 2018 because I wanted to bring my husband because he had never been.
Yeah,
Um, but I didn't photograph it. I just went.
yeah.
And but before that, I think the last one I shot was probably 2016. So yeah, I probably shot like 15 Coachellas.
I mean, Rage Against the Machine. I mean, looking back, I mean, they were kind of like the Strokes, but I'm not Rage Against the Machine. It was at the drive-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got yeah. Uh, or was it Rage Against you shot Rage Against the Machine or at the drive-in? I'm confused now.
I shot Rage Against the Machine at Coachella, and then at the drive-in is in the book, but they were shot at This Ain't No Picnic in '99. So
Okay,
it was the same year, but I did shoot at the drive-in at Coachella as well but that was in probably 2013. And then I also shot Mars Volta at Coachella, and that was, I
yeah,
think, 2003.
yeah. I mean,
Or no, later than that.
I think at the drive-in we're kind of like the Strokes before the Strokes. I mean, there was a lot of interest in at the drive-in when they in that '99 because I remember because like I just remember that whole time it was kind of like Britpop was sort of over, electronic bands were happening, and then in '98, '99, and then at the drive-in we're kind of like a rock band that was like really new, and it was like oh there was a lot of interest in them because I started reading like Mojo and Uncut and a lot of these magazines. I forgot some of them aren't with us. And Select magazine, because I would read all these magazines. Just kind of it took me a few years to because I was not really following music in the '90s, and then it took me about 2 or 3 years to catch up with everything. And but yeah, at the drive-in, Rage Against the Machine were kind of bands when we both started. I mean, we kind of both started in music kind of around the same time. Or other you were before that you were doing clubs though, the Cafe Blue thing.
Well, I did Cafe Blue and Bang from so Cafe Blue started in 1996, and I was booking bands, and we had DJs. And then from 2000 to 2011, I did Club Bang with Jason Lavitt, Joseph Brooks, and Shalice Benfell on Hollywood Boulevard. It's funny because somebody reached out to me recently and said that they were talking about Club Bang, and they said, were you one of the owners of Club Bang? Because apparently you weren't, because this person was saying I was not. But I was a quarter partner in the club, and my name was just never on the flyers like Jason and Joseph. So Shalice and I always end up being kind of the silent partners in the club that did a lot of the more marketing, and I booked a lot of the record release parties. Shalice handled a lot of the flyering for the events. So yeah, I mean, I've been involved in music, but it's not only through photography, for a really long time. I mean, almost 30 years. But the photography is something I started doing because I wanted to be a director. And I was repping music video directors in the early mid 90s. I started doing that in 1995. And then I started my own production company. Through a commercial agency, they asked me if I wanted to do a music video branch of their commercial company. So I started my own company, started repping directors, and the directors I was representing were not really interested in wanting to do the tracks that I was bringing to them. So eventually I was out at a club. Remember the Opium Den?
I think that was before my time and stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't here in the '90s. I was like in San Francisco and New York.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I went to the Opium Den one night and met this band that said, they said, what do you do? And I said, oh, I rep music video directors. And they said they were looking for a director to do their video, but they only had $3,000. And I was like, okay, well, none of my directors are going to want to do that, but how about I do your video? And they said, okay, sure, you do our video. So I ended up doing the video. It ended up coming out. It was for this band called The Violet Burning. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No.
Actually, Jeffrey from that band has been in the Smashing Pumpkins for like 15 years, and he just left, and now the Smashing Pumpkins are looking for a guitar player to replace him. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. So yeah, so I started doing music videos, and the cinematographer for the music videos was like, you should really buy a still camera because you could learn about film stocks and exposure, composition, lighting, everything you need to know to be a better director. Because I wasn't a terrible director, I just didn't know anything. I'd only been on music video sets and watched the directors I was representing work. So I thought, okay, I'll buy a camera. And I went to Sammy's, got a little camera, and started bringing it to Cafe Blue and just practicing shooting the bands, shooting the kids. I was terrible. Everything was underexposed for a very long time. And, but, eventually just doing it a lot and reading lots of books and asking a lot of questions, it just kind of all started to gel for me. And then eventually bands that were coming to the club started asking me to do their photos because um there was a big demand for band shots, and there wasn't there was a million bands in LA, but there wasn't a million photographers taking their photos. So it just organically started to happen because of, not even because I really wanted to be necessarily a busy photographer, but there was such a need for photos for indie bands and unsigned bands and local bands that were playing at all the clubs in LA, and everybody just needed pictures. So I started doing it for free, for money, for fun, for practice, for all the reasons, and it just became a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of the photographers back then were all kind of New York centric. LA was more kind of associated with film. And I mean, I can't really think of too many like LA photographers at all. I mean, I remember like back in the day.
Chapman Baylor was like a big photographer back
Oh,
then,
oh, okay.
doing a lot of stuff, but he was doing bigger stuff.
Yeah,
There
it's,
wasn't anybody really covering the local scene.
yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
there was, I just don't know.
I remember the people. I mean, what were these bands we were kind of talking about? I mean, people were like on Live Journal and just posting their fan shots and stuff. And so, like, we would all look at that stuff because it was people were kind of they would go see the Strokes or the White Stripes and post their pictures on Live Journal and stuff.
This is all pre-internet. There was no internet. This
Oh,
was all, there was no blogs, there was no
well,
posting.
I'm talking about well, I mean, Live Journal started in '99, I think.
I
So
know, that's what I mean. I started doing all this in 96. And so it was, so the way that I would show my work is I would shoot slides and project the slides. I would shoot pictures at the club one week, and then the following week I would project the pictures of the kids and the bands on the wall so that people could see that it was like this Warhol. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was kind of Warhol in the sense that like all the kids that would come to the club regularly would get their pictures taken and then they'd be on the screen or on the wall. And I think it was kind of created these like club superstars in a way, like Yossi and Gia, Mickey Madden from Maroon 5 and Dia, and just, yeah, it just, all these kids became, I don't know, I don't, they were like just like sort of famous club kids for our little scene. And then I would do the filming and then show the video too. And the other thing I was going to mention is, oh, the other way that I had to show my work in the very beginning was through 4x6 stacks of actual analog pictures I would carry around in literally like a paper bag to
wow.
show people my stuff.
Well, people, I mean, like Cafe Blue, I mean, people dressed up, and so there was like people that stood out. I mean, in the '90s, there was probably a lot of in LA, there was probably a lot of goth clubs, and people wore black. Maybe they weren't, as they would just have some kind of black kind of matrix looking outfit or something. Or I guess the Crow was really big back then, so people kind of dressed like that and stuff. So it wasn't, everyone was kind of like dressing like each other and stuff. So like the Cafe Blue was kind of cool because like people would dress up like mod or Britpop or
Yeah.
look like some guy. They would look like a person in a band or something. Or
Yeah.
and and then you kind of like by projecting them or showing videos, you kind of like reinforce the idea of the club. It's like, oh, this we got our own kind of Warhol factory going here.
Yeah, yeah, I can't. I've been looking at some of that footage lately. I digitized a bunch of tapes recently from that time, and I'm excited to put like a doc together with a lot of that footage and show how amazing the club scene and the music scene and the band scene was in Los Angeles in the late 90s and early 2000s, just like it was in New York or just like it was in other cities, you know. It really was just as interesting.
Yeah, well, another early show that you got to photograph was like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and Liars when they played the Waterfront in Williamsburg in
2002.
2002. I think that was a
Yeah.
real important gig because it was
Were
like,
you there?
I don't, was I there? No, I think I saw them. They did a tour with John
John
Spencer.
Spencer Blues Explosion.
Yeah,
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 I
and
shot that
all the
show.
bands, but yeah, I had I mean I had interviewed a lot of those bands like real early on, and for Free Williamsburg, and there was a big article around the same time in New York Magazine, and Free Williamsburg was kind of like the website that was kind of linked with all these bands and stuff because a lot of them, because I lived in Williamsburg and there was a lot of a lot of the bands practiced there, like Interpol and the Walkmen all practice there, and Secret Machines, a lot of the bands that you have in your book, like we're all practicing like in Williamsburg back then. So, but yeah, but I just remember that gig. I mean, New York used to have like Coney Island and a lot of these kind of gigs and stuff, and I just remember that being like an important gig because in the early days and stuff, and you were there. Did you
Yeah.
did you? I mean, there's a lot of yeah yeah yeahs in this book.
Yeah,
All
I filmed I also was helping Levi's do a cover that time in New York on video and film. So I shot the that event on the Williamsburg parking lot shows on Super 8 and video and photo. So a lot of that footage is in Meet Me in the Bathroom documentary.
yeah.
Um, so that, yeah, that was an amazing show. It's like, you know, I was at that show not realizing it was a historic event for sure. You know, you don't realize in the time that you're at these shows and seeing these moments unfold that it could potentially be historic, or you're not thinking about that at the moment. You're just kind of like, yeah, of course I'm here. I love music. I'm at a show every day of my life. So why would I not be here? You know, but looking back, I'm like, oh, that was a very historic moment because, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that was
Just
me. Well, you mentioned, I think in a few interviews you talked about "Meet Me in the Bathroom" by Libby Goldman and
Lizzie Goodman.
Lizzie Good. Oh yeah, Goodman. Yeah, and I read the book and I saw the documentary, and they like it was originally going to be like a 4-part thing for HBO in the early,
Uh-huh.
and I got, because I interviewed all the bands. They wanted like material. Do I have any interviews or tapes or something? So I sent them a few things I did with Liars and Interpol and some of those bands. But then like I go, hey, well, how's the film doing? And then it ended up being and then they announced it's a 90-minute film. They're not, I thought that maybe I was going to be in the film like as a talking head or something.
Oh,
And but because it was going to, because I think it was originally conceived as a 4-part thing for HBO, and then they switched it to a film, and then they said, "Oh, it's a 90-minute film. There's no people talking in it, and it's going to be playing at Sundance and stuff." And so now it's on Showtime. So you got contacted about this film too. You had, was your footage in the film or?
yeah, yeah. There's about 5 minutes of footage of my. There's the photo in the book of the Rapture performing in those like gold onesies,
Yeah,
and it's Halloween, and it's in New York in 2002, at John Street Bar and Grill, down by the World Trade Center, actually. But but yeah, so I also photographed and had that show filmed. So they used a lot of that footage and Meet Me in the Bathroom as well, I think. And then just some of the other stuff they used of mine was like voiceovers of Oh, they used a little footage of mine from the plant bar from when I was there and interviewed the Rapture and when they worked there. Actually, I think Luke and the guys, one of them worked at the plant bar. So they would have like
Yeah.
DJ nights and we would go film like, oh, we're filming the Rapture working at a bar before they broke and blown up. You know, it was weird. Um, but and then they used a little of my Ryan Gentles interview, but just as voiceover.
Yeah, I think Luke and James Murphy from LCD Sound System worked at Plan Bar.
Oh, okay. I
Uh,
didn't know James did.
yeah, and so yeah, here's the book again, Indie Scene. Beck's on the cover. It's kind of important that Beck's on the cover because he's kind of like this whole kind of the last 25 years. It seems like Beck's kind of like the linchpin. He's kind of like connects. He's kind of like connects it all. He kind of because he's like he plays with a lot of these British bands, and he seemed like, I mean, what's today? Because I remember coming to LA. I was living in San Francisco in '95, and I came and stayed with Mitchell Frank, and he was telling me, "Oh, you got to, Beck's really great." Beck. I think Beck's probably played the most secret shows in LA of any other. He always seems like he's playing like the Lodge Room or the Echo or Spaceland or something, and like when Spaceland opened in '94, '95, I went there. Mitchell Frank took me down there. He goes, "Yeah, this is my new club." And
Yeah,
I don't know about this place, but like in about a year, it was like the big club, like,
hotspot. Yeah.
and Beck seems like he's like kind of connected to a lot of this stuff because he or Beck's band, kind of like,
They're all in the book too as TVI when
yeah,
they have the band TVI. I don't know. I just thought Beck was such a perfect cover because perfect cover choice because I am, such a huge fan and he just kind of like crosses all genres, he just works in every department. And he's just so unique and so special. And I mean, I could go on and on about how amazing I think he is. I think he's just so innovative, and every record is a different feel, different vibe, different recording style, pretty much, and he's just so diverse and everybody loves him. It doesn't matter who you are, he's, yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's another part of the book which seems like the Strokes when they started. I mean, they weren't that in the early days. They weren't really that big in New York. It seemed like it happened like London first, and then LA second, and then New York for some
Mhm.
reason. Like we in New York, we didn't even know who they were. I saw them. I saw a magazine like biggest band in New York, the Strokes. I go, who are these guys? Nobody. They were one of many bands, but they just kind of blew up in London, where there was for some reason, and so
Well, it's because they got their record offer from Rough Trade. I think they
yeah,
were having issues with figuring out how to get signed in New York, or the deals weren't right, or the people just didn't feel right initially. And then Rough Trade
yeah,
uh, got a hold of them and brought them to England. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to them because it's such a perfect artist label. I'm listening to Lucinda Williams' book right now, and she was actually having the same exact thing happen to her in Los Angeles, where none of the labels were able to take her seriously. They didn't understand what she was trying to do. And then Rough Trade, what is it, Jeff Travis?
yeah.
Heard the record, heard one of her bootleg demos, and was like, I want to put this out. Let's make a record. Here's not very much money, but she was like, hell yeah. So I don't know. You got to give it up to Rough Trade.
Well, the Strokes, yeah, they kind of like they were part of the sea change in music because there was like '90s music, and then there was like a year where electronica was kind of happening, and and then the Strokes and the White Stripes and a lot of other bands like kind of came along, and even though the Strokes weren't maybe as popular as the Killers or Kings of Leon, I mean they I mean those bands were were Kings of Leon and Killers were able to do something because of the Strokes before, like I mean there was a couple bands before the Strokes that were like I think of that were kind of like the Strokes before the Strokes, and one was At the Drive, and another one was Jonathan Fire Eater, and you had some pictures of Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Because like I mean, because I was in New York in the '90s, and I remember like Jonathan Fire Eater, they signed like this big contract because and with DreamWorks, and they came out with a record, but it just kind of bombed, and nobody they were kind of popular in New York and nowhere else, like a lot of punk bands or something. And
Yeah. Were you able to see Jonathan Fire Eater in New York when you were
yeah,
there?
yeah. I was friends with Stewart, and
Oh,
I
I
was,
didn't
I
know
was
that.
and yeah, like I ran into one of the guys from the Walkmen, and I go, wow, I just saw that book, and you guys look like so. Yeah, Peter Bauer. I ran into Peter Bauer at a gig, and I go, oh, I just saw Piper's book, and you guys look so young in that book, man. I forgot you look like teenagers back then. And he goes, oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh yeah, they were like that was God, they must have been like 22 or something
Yeah,
years
because
old.
they just blew through town a few months ago, and I just saw them when they played the Fonda a few months ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, going, God, I've been watching these guys for like 20 years or more, and it's kind of weird. But I mean, there's like Britpop and the LA scene. I mean, there's all sorts of bands. I mean, there's some of these bands that like seems like only people in LA know, like IO Echo and Czar and people like that. Like,
Czar just made a t-shirt of one of my pictures. Did you see that?
yeah.
Oh my God. It's
But
so
but but there's some of the what I would call like the grandfathers, the guys that kind of enabled the scene. Like you have like Johnny Marr, Joe Strummer, Iggy Pop, John Cale, Sonic Youth, and John Spencer Blues Explosion. I mean those were kind of like the bands that happened before, which were kind of like the post 2000 bands that were kind of like influencing what happened in most of this book and stuff. And yeah, and then getting back to the New York bands, I mean, like I was like Secret Machines, the Walkmen, and the Rapture. I just interviewed Maddie from the Rapture a few months ago and stuff, and we were talking about.
oh, and he's in poolside.
Yeah, he's in Poolside, and he has his own band too.
Oh,
Like,
he does.
yeah, Poolside's like super big. They're playing the Will Turn like in a couple weeks or something.
Amazing. Yeah, Jeff has been a good friend of mine for a long time.
And
He actually gave me some of the quotes in the book for, oh, I should give Jeff Rhodesiak props because I was like, help me describe the rapture. And he was the one that came up with some of the quote. What's the quote in there about the rapture? I gotta remember. Um, let's see. Oh, well, it's gonna take me too long to find it.
yeah,
But anyways, yeah, he was very helpful in just how because he had a band before the Rapture called, oh my God, what was the band called that he had with, oh, I can't believe I can't remember the name. So yeah, he had a band with all the guys in the Rapture before they were the Rapture, and then Luke came along and
yeah.
stole his, well, I don't want to say that. Basically, they all started playing with Luke. Jeff's band stopped happening, but then Jeff said he went and saw them and was like, and they're so fucking good, like what can I say? They're amazing. I can't remember how the story went down. Please don't if I get it
Oh.
wrong.
Well, yeah, and then yeah, there's yeah, because I also know you because I did some touring with Brian Jonestown, and I was a tour manager of Brian Miranda Lee Richards and Foxygen, so you would be there at shows. Or I remember when I was a tour manager of the Magic Wand, and we toured with the Kills and the Horrors, and you did that picture of the Horrors up in the Fonda up in the side there. They got up
Oh,
on.
you were there?
Yeah, I was like watching you and Apollo were taking pictures. And
Oh, how
I
cool.
was just walking in the background and stuff because I was like the tour manager of the opening band and stuff. And
Oh, I see.
so I would see you because a lot of these photos were done at sound check and or backstage or something, or like in the I mean, the ones that weren't at the Coachella or, you know, Fader Ford or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So let me I guess we're limited on time here. So well, I just wanted to ask you what kind of cameras you use, like in these pictures. Like, are you using a Canon or?
No, well, yeah, for some, but the majority, there's my new press photo I have where a lot of where I'm holding a Hasselblad, and that Hasselblad is, I think it's from this 1970 or something, or maybe 60s, I'm not sure. But that was the camera that I used to, it's like a medium format film camera beast. I use that for the Coldplay, Joe Strummer, the Shins, Modest Mouse, like so much. Actually, a lot of the book was shot with that medium format camera. A lot of the South by Southwest stuff, everything that's a square, I kept it square purposefully to show the format, the medium format. Um, and so, yeah, I did use a lot of the book was on film. So it was also challenging because originally the book was not supposed to be an only indie book. It was supposed to be a book of 25 years of Piper Ferguson photography, including Tom Petty and Merle Haggard and Mick Fleetwood and Carlos Santana and all kinds of classic artists. But then my publisher thought, let's call it indie scene. And I thought, well, I don't want to call a book indie scene when everybody in it isn't technically indie. I said, but if you want to do an indie book, I'll do an indie book. And he goes, yeah, let's do an indie book. So I started over and then had to pull out all the proof sheets, and so much of it was on film, and there was so much scanning and quick editing that had to happen to get it in time for the print run for summer to come out in the fall. So it was intense, to say the least. And so I used the Hasselblad. So much of the book is film. A lot of it shot with that Hasselblad. But then I use a Canon 5D Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, all the marks. I switched to Canon. Everybody had to because of the sensor size. Are we running out of time here?
Yeah, we're got about 2 minutes. Well, let's just talk about you're doing this reading interview with
Oh yeah, at Zibby's Bookshop in Santa Monica. Do you have the address in handy?
yeah, like I don't know. Let's see, I sort of do. Yeah, here, hold on, let me take a look here. Where was it?
I don't know a lot of West Siders, so if there's anybody that's hearing this that lives on the West Side, please come. It would be amazing. 6 p.m. January 17th.
January 17th, author with Lily Moriarty, or how do you
Lily
say it?
Moayeri, yep, she's
It's
moderating.
at 1113 Montana Avenue, Santa Monica. So that's probably downtown there somewhere.
Not downtown, no. It's
Oh,
a
it is.
little off the beaten
Okay,
path.
well, hopefully it's by the freeway there. And so
I,
that's in 1 week. So everybody go down there and get it. And if people want to buy this book, they can come to piperferguson.com or Amazon and buy multiple copies. Get one for your mom, and
Thank you.
it's a great book. It's if you're it's great to did I send you? I took that picture of you and Cobra Snake. Like did I ever send that to you? I'll send it
No,
to you.
or maybe you did, but I don't know.
I'll
I
send
have
you.
I have some pictures of us too.
Okay, yeah, I took one like you guys because yeah, like I had a I known Mark for a long time too.
Yeah. Well, next time I see you, I need to get a picture of you and me because I
Okay,
don't have one of
yeah,
those.
we'll do that. Okay, well, thanks for talking to me. We'll see you
Thanks
at
for talking to me.
we're at this reading, and everybody get the book again, and let's see, let's